invite Dr. Isabel Jormer to speak on the manufacturing sector, which will be of great interest to the people when you speak in Delhi.
A few words on why we have worked on the manufacturing sector in India. First, I would like to say that we chose this topic even before the new government came into power and launched this Make in India initiative. So why is the manufacturing sector so important in our view in India? It is clear, and I will show you that the manufacturing sector could really create more income and more jobs. And why is it important? It's not only a question of income, it's also a question of income inequality, because by creating jobs, you really reduce income inequality. Second, the manufacturing sector suffers most from many structural constraints. By relieving them, you would boost the income in the manufacturing sector, but you would also boost income in the rest of the economy. My presentation will have three parts. First, the symptoms. What is the evidence which shows that the manufacturing sector could perform better? Second, what are the structural bottlenecks which explain the poor performance? And third, what are the policy recommendations that we would like to push in India? You could measure, in terms of external competitiveness, what we call the revealed comparative advantage in the economy. Here we use OECD database, and it's just the number of sectors out of 18 which have a comparative advantage in the economy, both service and manufacturing sector. And you see that India performs basically as other emerging economies. It has 6 sectors for which India has a comparative advantage. But then if you look at the composition, you see that the manufacturing sector in red has less, there are less sectors with a comparative advantage. And it's mostly service sector where you have a comparative advantage. It's completely different if you turn to China and Indonesia. They are only in the manufacturing sector. Look at the manufacturing sector. It has created only 6 million jobs over a 7-year period. And the rest comes from the service sector. What are the explanations? What are the bottlenecks which really burden the manufacturing sector? The OECD builds what we call the Employment Protection Legislation Index. And I show it here in this chart. So the lower is the index, the higher is the higher is the index, the more stringent are labor regulation. And as you could see here, India is completely at the right, which means that employment protection legislation, which in India is mainly through the Industrial Dispute Act, labor regulations are extremely stringent compared to other OECD countries and even emerging economies. And labor regulations are supposed to protect workers, and that's what you would like them to do. But if they are too stringent, as they are in India, you end up with them covering a very small number of workers. So in India, you have very stringent labor regulation, but most of workers are not protected by them. So this is really an issue. But there are various dimensions, and there are progress currently in India. But I wanted to show you one aspect which may need to be improved further, is the time it takes to go through a bankruptcy procedure. And you see in India, so that's the horizontal axis is how many years you have to go through to complete a bankruptcy procedure. And you see that in India it's more than 4 years. And it has 2 main consequences. The first consequence is that you lock resource in low productive sectors, low productive activities, low productive companies. But there is a second consequence, and that's why I have the vertical axis, is that the longer it takes across country, the lower banks and other lenders can get out of the money they lend. And this linked to the banking sector, which is in India plagued with non-performing loans, preventing the financing of new investments. So that's really something which is important in India. The complexity of the tax system, India, the taxes in India are relatively low, but they are extremely complex to comply with. And so this chart shows the number, the house per year, so the time you need to comply with the tax system. And you see that India ranks not that well on that account, and especially it comes from the consumption tax. So, because you have so many different taxes that, on indirect taxes that, make the system much more complex. Better quality jobs, India has to reconsider simplified labor regulation. It has to come with labor regulation which are simpler and which could also cover more people. Second, you need to improve access to education, and not only access, which efforts have been made, but also the quality of the education system and also vocational training. Infrastructure needs a clear need to improve infrastructure. Land acquisition, we didn't have time to discuss, but land acquisition is an issue, and something needs to be done in a stable way, I would say. And fourth, continue improving the business environment and opening up the economy. Again, some progress are being done, but more could be done. And five, implement swiftly the good and service tax, because it would really make it easier to not only make in India, but make for India, because you could trade better within states and across states.